writers in the country for a long time. And he was talking about Debo and Aiyuk, and he says the Niners with Aiyuk have a little buyer's remorse now.
They did not like the price that they paid for him. I think it was, let's go for it. We're going for the Super Bowl from the football side. And I think the negotiators never felt good about that number ever, $30 million a year. I'll just say the general theme here is 49ers top not being happy with those deals, not being happy with a lot of deals, not being happy with the money that they've paid, as John Lynch talked about in Indianapolis, top 3-4 in the league for the last few years. It's fine in, I think, Jed York's mind if you win a Super Bowl. So if you're at least getting there, and they went 6-11 last year.
Here's my only criticism before we get to Ryan Day. I understand NFL teams reaching on quarterbacks. That is not extravagant. Everybody needs one, and they're worth 10 points if you get it right. That's like reaching on a new home in a good school district. You want your kids to be safe. You want them in a good school district. You reach on a home. That's not extravagant. Reaching on a receiver is more like dad can't afford it but buys a new motorcycle. That's a little risky. That's a little ego to me. I think too many GMs are playing fantasy football with wide receivers. Now, do they matter? Yes. But in the professional football world, it is a coach-quarterback league. So I think they have overspent on wide receivers, and I say that knowing, having worked with John Lynch and covered him, I think he's a brilliant guy. With that, Ryan.
Okay. Well, let's keep it 49ers. Okay, so listen. I wasn't crazy how the 49ers handled everything with Aiyuk when this all went down last offseason, which I covered a lot of, and the potential of trading him and working his contract, whatever it may be. I think it's tough, right? You have buyer's remorse right now because, you paid him a lot of money. The beginning of the season, he didn't look great, and then he then got injured, and then the team and the season fell apart. So what is there to feel good about? So you forget what Aiyuk was able to give you. That's part of the problem. Now, listen, I'm only really willing to pay all this money to a wide receiver who I think is like truly special. Truly, truly, truly a difference maker. Someone who is going to get that job done. A Justin Jefferson, an AJ Brown, etc. I'm not convinced that Aiyuk is necessarily that person. And that's kind of part of that. That's potentially part of the problem. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm not saying he is either. And that's the weird situation. Not to mention, I didn't like him as a teammate, as a personality. And that's my concern. I'm not paying a lot of money to a wide receiver, to a diva wide receiver. And on a spectrum, Aiyuk's not like the worst in that regard. But it's just like, I'm not about that. I'm really, really not. If they were truly transcendent, and you knew without a shadow of a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, you're in the Super Bowl, and you need a play from a wide receiver, AJ Brown is going to make a play. A Justin Jefferson can make a play. You don't know that from an Aiyuk necessarily. You just don't. You can point to some highlights, sure, but there's a different level of confidence. I know without a shadow of a doubt, AJ Brown is not going to hold my team back in a big, massive, gotta have it moment. So I'm willing to pay for that. I'm willing to put up with any of the other, extracurriculars that could happen around a great talent. You can't say that with Aiyuk. And again, don't point to examples where Aiyuk had big plays. I'm not saying he can't play big. I'm not saying that he can't ball. I'm not saying that. But there's just different degrees of confidence. That's the difference. I mean, here's Brandon Aiyuk in the Super Bowl. Three receptions for 49 yards. This was him in the NFC Championship game. 3 catches for 68 yards. And a big chunk of that, that 51-yard, was luck. He admitted it. He literally admitted it. He said, a ladybug, landed on my foot. because it was one of those ridiculous, like, bouncing off, a bunch of players. It was like, I think it was like an underthrown ball bounced on whoever was covering him. Like, it was a wonky play that easily could have not happened. So then he would have had 2 catches for, 17 yards in the NFC Championship game. That's not good enough. A.J. Brown, 6 receptions, 96 yards, 1 touchdown. That's in the NFC Championship game. A.J. Brown, 3 catches, 43 yards, 1 touchdown, which is a slightly misleading box score because he had another big catch that got called back, which was still so crucial because if he doesn't catch that ball or if he can't get open, whatever it may be, then that play is declined and it was on 4th down, and now the Chiefs get the ball at like the 50. So that's a game changer. That was the first drive for the Philadelphia Eagles. That was a massive play. A massive play, even though it doesn't show up in the box score. Massive. Those things matter. And again, some of these catches were in key moments. Key moments. In A.J. Brown's first Super Bowl with the Eagles, 6 receptions, 96 yards, a touchdown. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. Those are the differences. Those are some of the differences. But at the same time, who's to say that Aiyuk wouldn't have been able to do some of that? But this season was such a mess. But that's the risk. You're willing to put up with some of this other extra stuff from an A.J. Brown because he's consistently proven himself. He's proven himself in conference championship games, Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls. So it's different. Aiyuk's causing problems without having that. If Aiyuk went for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, even though they lost, you would say, all right, I'm willing to kind of deal with some of this stuff. So I understand now that they don't have any of the production, and the last experience they really have with Aiyuk is more negative because he was kind of, doing the thing. He wasn't wearing the right colors. He's causing problems with Shanahan. He's sending weird, he's posting videos of himself talking to like Jaden Daniels and stuff on social media. And when you have all that stuff, it's kind of like if the Eagles lost the Super Bowl and if A.J. Brown didn't play great in the Super Bowl or even the conference championship game, the last taste in your mouth with all of that would be A.J. Brown sulking to the media, reading a book. And yeah, people would be, and if they just paid A.J. Brown a massive contract, there would be buyer's remorse. You would have the feeling of like, we paid so much money for this receiver. He's complaining on the sideline. He had 3 catches in the NFC Championship game, or he had 2 catches in the Super Bowl, and like whatever it is. And you would have a problem with it. Or if he got injured, it's like paying AJ big time money, and this is tough because he played great in the Super Bowl in 22. But let's say they paid him a big contract, and he didn't play big in the Super Bowl in 22. Then 23 he gets injured, and then their season collapses like it did for the Eagles, and then he wasn't even available in the playoffs. You would have the buyer's remorse, especially now when you feel limited by other things that you may or may not need to do for your team. So, I get it. I would still want to see what Aiyuk. I think the hardest part is that Aiyuk looked so not good in the beginning of the season, and he was just like kind of non-existent. And then when you see like Adron Jennings and things of that nature, you're just kind of like, oh, okay. But yeah, I think kind of wait and see how this season goes. And at the end of the day, it all matters just about you winning. Because the Eagles paid A.J. Brown a ton of money, and A.J. Brown didn't feel like he was utilized necessarily enough, but they still won the Super Bowl. So it's like no harm, no foul. It's all good. Who cares? And in the moments when it's like we need you, you step up. We rely on you. So it's not this all or nothing type of thing. It's not like Aiyuk now needs to go for 2,000 yards and 14 touchdowns to prove his contract. No, it's just that he needs to be clearly an issue for defenses to deal with as a season goes on, as a game goes on, as drives go on, and in the moments when they really need to rely on Aiyuk, are you ready? Are you ready to make a big play? And do you step up in those games that we need you to? AKA Conference Championship game, Super Bowl. If you do, no buyer's remorse. If you don't, then yeah, absolutely. That is then another check in the column of like, we don't really need to pay for big receivers. So, yeah. I am curious to see how this continues to unfold. I do think that the 49ers were backed into a corner, and they did feel that they were kind of, their best chance to win a Super Bowl, if they were looking at their season from, when they were looking at their season moving forward in like last July, if they were saying over these next 3 years, our best chance to win a Super Bowl is this year right now. I believe that, and that's why they were making the moves that they were making. That's why they were just trying to go on. We want to run this back. We got Christian McCaffrey, we got Purdy, we got Debo, we got Aiyuk, we got Kittle. We got these pieces. Everyone's, right there still. And, with each day that passes, they're going to get older, more banged up, more injured. We're probably going to, there's already the suspicion that they were always going to be moving on from Debo, et cetera, et cetera. So they were just trying to go all in on this 1 year. And the injuries happened. So who really knows how it would have unfolded? It feels like even if they were completely healthy, they weren't going to be able to beat the Eagles. The Eagles were just that good. And so, you never really know. But yeah. I don't know because the question says, should San Francisco regret overpaying their star receiver? I don't think it's necessary to say they regret considering how the season unfolded with all the injuries. But should they be concerned? Should they be nervous? Sure. I do think that that's totally understandable and appropriate. But yeah, it's definitely a messier situation than you would want. But yeah, I don't know. I think so much of it also comes down to personality as well. Because if Aiyuk if he was a great soldier and a great teammate and a great leader, they would not have that regret. They would understand he's part of the culture of this team. He's clearly not. And they caved to someone that tried to force their hand. That, to me, is probably where the regret comes from more than anything, combined with the fact that they got nothing for that contract because he got injured, and then the season was a wash. The season was essentially a disaster for the 49ers. That's the recipe for feeling like, what did we just do? But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the 49ers? Do you think they should have buyer's remorse with Aiyuk? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.